Good morning. It is Sunday. Some of you just getting out of church. Some of you maybe heading off to late service. But for those of you watching right now, you know what time it is. It's time to jump in the rotation. Cue that beautiful theme music.
In my soul, every corner in my heart.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you just joining us, my name is Christopher Cano. I am the executive director of Suncoast Normal, and as you can see, I'm not at my normal location in our nation's capital. I'm actually on the road to Chicago, headed to the Democratic National Convention. We, of course, in our studio have our deputy director, Carlos Hermida, and our resident sound engineer handling everything in the background. Shout out to Carlos. And then our political director, the one, the only, the venerable Gary Stein. Gary, how are you doing this morning?
Quite venerable, actually.
There you go.
Yeah, you guys speak in the microphone.
Quite venerable. I just got off the road myself. I was in Detroit this last week because I know we were replaying the town hall we had on Amendment 3, which I think was fantastic. All the pros and cons came on to listen to all the pros and cons about Amendment 3. I think it was just great. And I had to go over and check out to see how Ohio was implementing their adult use program. Buckeyes, you got to get it together.
Well,
Sorry.
I'm actually in Ohio at the moment at a rest stop.
They don't sell it there.
No, but I did smell it as soon as I drove into the state. Like somebody must have a farm right on the Pennsylvania-Ohio border.
Ohio is like all farm from edge to edge. It's all corn.
Yeah.
Essentially, I got to tell you though, I was at one of those publicly government funded rest stops in Ohio. And I saw this lady go into this little room that says baby changing room. And she came out with the exact same baby. And just another government lie. That's all I can say.
Gary, you are a winner with the dad jokes. That is for sure. So
not as good as Grady Judd. He does a lot of better dad jokes than I do.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Before we get into introducing our special guest today, we usually do the news, but some local news that folks may not know is that in Polk County, Sheriff Grady Judd and the Polk County Sheriff's Department recently busted a cannabis bus that was apparently, I guess, based out of the Orlando area that was in Polk County selling hemp products, but using that as a cover to sell, essentially adult use recreational marijuana products from our medical system because they were a medical patient and basically repackaging and reselling the bud. So far, that's all the details we really have. It's still a case that's under investigation. But to be clear, Floridians, if you have a medical marijuana card, it is only for you to utilize. You are clearly breaking the law if you try to resell it. Florida is not the same as some other states. As in some adult use states, like perhaps like Washington, D.C., for example, and in other states, you can give people cannabis, but these folks were outright selling it in a parking lot, in a mall, in Grady Judd's territory. I got to tell you, I got no defense for that. If you're selling weed or you have weed anywhere in possession illegally near Grady Judd, you do that at your own peril.
They actually had his deputies go to Orange County and follow the bus back into Polk, which is an interesting way of handling things, but I guess he knows what he's doing. He has all the foam core posters to prove it. But you guys aren't doing us any favors, guys. When you break the law, you can't make the law. That's what it comes down to.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, we have businesses like this popping up. And we have a thriving hemp industry in Florida because people want access to, intoxicating cannabinoids. They want adult use cannabis in this state. And the medical system in this state still has barriers to entry in regards to financial costs on doctors' recommendations. There are still people who have concerns about privacy and being in a database. People's Second Amendment rights are still pending on a court case. And so there's a lot to be said about the shortcomings of the industry. And who better to address those than a leader in the Florida legislature, Senator Joe Gruters, who's our special guest today. Gary, why don't you go ahead and tell the folks a little bit about the senator, and then Senator, you can hop on and tell the folks, why you decided to come on the rotation today and why you're supporting Amendment 3.
I am very happy to bring Senator Gruters on today. He and I met outside of Andrews a couple of years ago. I think maybe before you even were senator. And since that time, you went on to become the head of the Republican Party over here in Florida, and you've just been a lion of the Senate, so to speak, here in Florida. And I love the picture of the ceiling of the I guess that's the Senate floor, right, up above your left hand shoulder.
Correct.
There.
Yep.
You can't see it, guys, but there's the writing along the edges has the name of every single county in the state. That is so that when the senators get bored, they can look up and see, oh yeah, I forgot that one.
Exactly.
Now, Senator, I had a chance to take a look at your bio yesterday. I did not know that you had a connection to, not being in Sarasota, of course, that's how unusual, that you had a connection to the actual Ringling Circus, as in your great grandfather or great grandfather was a tent master.
That's right. My great grandfather moved in 1927 to Sarasota to become the chief tent maker of the Ringling Circus. He actually, he ran the winter quarters. When John Ringling died, he's the one who locked the door. He'd say, so my family's been here ever since. So we came with the circus, and it's great to be part of that history here in our community. So
you went from being the son of a tent maker to the party of the big tent.
Yes. It's politics is a crazy sport. I always say I'm an accidental senator. I didn't think I was going to be in elected office. I served in the background helping others get elected for a long time and out of the spotlight. And it was you take a lot less arrows and you could do a lot more, I think. But sometimes you're in the right place at the right time, and politics is all about timing. And all of a sudden, and now I've 10 years in, I've served 2 years in the House and the last 6 years in the Florida Senate. It's been a great opportunity to serve and help people.
Now, I've heard rumblings that after you finish your term out, you're considering going after the CFO position.
Yeah, that's true. So what happened is back in March, this guy, President Donald Trump, endorsed me for CFO. I'm the only endorsed candidate in the entire country in the 2026 cycle by the former president. And so that shows you my relationship that I have with him. And it's just a natural progression. I'm a CPA by trade. I tell people I'm on the front line of businesses. I hear people's struggles all the time, but it's for me, it's about trying to continue that service and trying to go up there and make a difference in areas where I think I can contribute.
Well, Senator, I have a quick question. As an accountant by trade, obviously you have an eye to budgeting. Do you feel as though that this amendment will bring in revenues in the state of Florida without having to raise taxes on the rank and file folks that are already struggling in this state?
Yeah, there's no question. Well, the Revenue Estimating Commissioner has already come out and said 100 to 400 million initially the first year. First couple of years. And so listen, there's gonna be a lot of revenue. And my thing is I think I have confidence that my colleagues can spin it the right way and go right to, enforcement activities, give it to law enforcement, let them have all the tools and resources they need to do their job. Public education always needs more money. There's a lot of ways we could spend that wisely. And I think that we can come up with the right plan. And yes, there's no need or no reason why we shouldn't capitalize. That's the financial benefits are not the main reasons why I'm for it. I'll just go ahead and tell you why. I've done somewhat of an evolution on this this subject, but it goes, for me, the bottom line is access. Ever since I was in high school, I've had a lot of friends smoke marijuana, college, all throughout my life. And the one thing that's been consistent, and I've said this since I was first in the legislature, is anybody that's wanted the product has not had a hard time finding access to the product, right? It's readily available without many hurdles. The problem is some of those products are laced with things that they shouldn't be laced with. That's unregulated, and kids and adults are dying as a result. And so for me, it's about regulation. It's about making sure that product is safer. It's way past time we decriminalize minor possession of marijuana. That should have happened long ago, but it hasn't. This will officially do that. And then finally, it's controlling the time, place, and manner. Like I said, access is already there. Medical marijuana is already there. People that want to have access to the product have many ways to get it. But it's about coming down and putting the guardrails up and working with my colleagues. And I just put out a bill this week. Some people may like it, some people may not. But at the end of the day, I think it solves a big problem that people have with this amendment. I think it's a common sense legislation. What I did when I was in the House and then carried over into the Senate is I was a big proponent of banning smoking on Florida's public beaches and public parks. And it took 5 or 6 years to pass that. And ultimately what we did is we just gave control back to local governments for them to decide whether or not they wanted to move forward with that or not. But that was something they didn't have the authority to do until we did that. But so I'm going to continue that push, try to expand it, try to ban the public smoking across the board. And for me, I think it will, that's the type of balance and those are the type of guardrails that we could put up to make sure the public is still protected, but then we can make sure that access is guaranteed and safe and that we decriminalize it. So for me, it's a three-pronged approach, but I think that, listen, there's a lot of momentum. I think I just saw a poll. It was at 65%. We need 60. The opposition is about to come out and start trying to chip away at that. And we just have to me, it's about common sense. It's about reality. It's about making sure we don't have to force, hundreds of thousands of people to lie to go to the medical marijuana dispensaries if they're not really sick. Those will still be in place. They won't pay taxes. That they provide, those doctors provide a good resource and avenue for people to get access to products. But at the same time, it's time to tear down those walls for the adults that want to use it in a responsible way.
Now, when I first came to Florida, I was in charge of the tobacco control and prevention program for Hillsborough County. So I'm well familiar with the fight that you had in regards to the beaches and everything like that in regards to cigarettes is concerned. And that was a bit of it was different, but it was the same in regards to the fact it was obviously there are people who don't want to have cigarette smoke swirling around their head or cigarette butts on the beach, which actually was the bigger problem because of that you'd go to some of the beaches and you just be seeing cigarette butts all over the place. Like, did I come here for the beaches or for the ashtrays? That's what it came down to it. And also we had a huge lobby in the tobacco industry who was doing everything they could to increase the amount of cigarette sales and things of that sort, including trying to keep us from taxing it higher to reduce the amount of tobacco use. And that was when we already had decades and decades of research, and including a huge lawsuit that was done back in the 90s with Governor Childs that said it was definitely dangerous for health. And yet cannabis is not as dangerous for health as cigarettes have been. And yet there's also issues that you might not want to have the scent around you.
Well, yeah, you're right. And there's a lot of powerful forces that don't want legal recreational cannabis and a lot of people with a lot of resources. So it's listen, this is going to be a real battle over the next 85 days. But it's time to face reality, and this is where we are, and we should continue to move forward and just make sure. And I have full faith and confidence in the governor and my colleagues in the legislature to make sure those guardrails are in place to make sure that the overall public is protected at the end of the day.
Now, as far as current law right now is concerned, the way we had set up the medical law in 2017 is that there is no public use currently for medical cannabis. That is stated very succinctly. In fact, one of the things that we had to deal with when we were trying to get whole flower was when they were talking about whether or not people would have access to it in say, for instance, correctional institutions and things of that sort. And they're saying, well, if you can't have it there, obviously that means you can have it here, kind of situation. And so that was one of the issues. I'm wondering, is the bill you're talking about trying to put teeth into the current law that would prevent it? Because right now you can't, even if you have a medical card, even if you have it sitting in your pocket and you have the label still on the package while you're out there, if you're smoking on the beach right now, you can't get arrested.
Yeah, I'm confused. Your bill that you're going to propose is smoking in general, cigarettes, tobacco, cigars, pipes, all that, right?
Don't forget
Yeah.
vapes.
Vapes.
Yeah.
Across the board. That's
Across the board. Okay, so you're like not picking on cannabis consumers.
That's exactly right. It's across the board. And here's the deal. The main opposition to Amendment 3, and you got to think about is and what the governor keeps on saying is we don't want Florida to smell like New York City or Las Vegas. We got to stop this. And so we could eliminate that argument by saying we're going to get rid of public smoking overall and just try to put that whole argument, the entire attack against the amendment, and put that on the sideline. And that's the point that I'm trying to make is, listen, the governor has the authority, the legislature has the authority by the Constitution to regulate products just like tobacco, just like alcohol. We're going to be able to do the same thing with marijuana. And so that's one of the intent of the bill, is to let people know that, yes, we have the authority and we're going to do it.
So,
well, that seems to be the constitutional thing to do. I mean, obviously the media kind of reported it as you were going to single out cannabis, but a general smoking ban across the board, seems constitutionally correct. What I think some folks might want some clarity on is, are you looking at giving the local governments the power to do this as you previously approached, or is this going to be a top-down approach from the state legislature?
Well, listen, it took me 6 years to pass that. And the one thing about my ban on smoking is cigars are completely excluded from that. And you say, well, how in the world can you exclude cigars from the no smoking on beaches? Well, because they are so powerful and influential with members of the legislature, their lobby corps, and their some of the business owners around the state, that in order to pass the bill that I did, I had to drop cigars completely. So this is the starting point. We'll see how it goes. But like I said, the main argument against the amendment is the smell. And so how do you beat that? You say, let's just go ahead and across the board,
Like I said, we tried to get a ban on beaches for cigarette smoking, in part basically because of the butts and things of that sort. But we had pushback from tobacco companies, and tobacco companies, even though that they were squashed practically in the 1990s with that big settlement against them that they lost, we still found that the tobacco industry still had a stranglehold on a lot of politics, even including the fact that as a state employee, I found out that my retirement fund was full of stocks that were tobacco stocks, which I thought was amazing. Here I am, head of the anti-tobacco wing of the state, and my retirement is full of tobacco money. What kind of stranglehold does tobacco still have on Florida? I know there's some Florida agriculture here that is tobacco, but mostly money coming from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia.
They certainly have a role. What happens is with lobby groups with certain industries is they end up with the support, and they have various lobbyists, and all those lobbyists have relationships with different members. And so passing a bill is not an easy thing to do overall. And you really have to have the will, and you have to have the momentum, and you have to build a lot of up. But in terms of the guardrails that the legislature could put up to make sure that this is implemented the right way, that they have the full constitutional authority to do that. And I don't know how it will end up, but it's like I said, this bill certainly is a starting point.
Now, you mentioned the fact that there are certain products out there that are coming out of the quote unquote legacy market. Other people used to call it the black market. That was not necessarily laced, but adulterated with certain substances. And I think a lot of those substances were not put in there intentionally, but that these were people who were packaging fentanyl in the same places they were packaging their cannabis for sale. And so therefore that stuff floats around and it tends to get in there. So if you have a regulated industry with regulations such as you can only have one room that has one particular product and that kind of situation, that resolves that. And I can see how what you're trying to say is that we need to reduce the amount of use within the legacy market who is not regulated. And so therefore their products get adulterated, not necessarily intentionally, but unintentionally.
That's correct. Exactly right.
Well, Gary, let me take that a step further. It's not just the legacy market, though. Missouri Normal is actually challenging their own state legislature for allowing, potentially dangerous toxic additives to their legal cannabis market, such as vitamin E acetate. In 2019, the CDC identified vitamin E acetate as a toxic additive that's most likely responsible for a vape lung is what doctors tend to call it, which has resulted in dozens of deaths nationwide. And so people have concerns, especially other normal chapters in other states, and we do too, as whether or not can our own legal cannabis industry include that in vape cartridges. So there's definitely a lot to be said about also protecting consumers and medical patients, sick people, from the legal market. Now, obviously, we don't want to overregulate people out of business, but there are major concerns that folks have across the country as to with the safety and efficacy of those products that people have access to. Senator, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that we need to re-examine how the medical system has gone over the past 7 years and maybe adapt some things this session to better help consumers?
We have a couple of doctors here locally in Sarasota that I talk to, Dr. Barry Gordon, and anytime he has an issue, he comes over and
he's watching right now.
Oh, he's on? Yeah, he's a good guy.
Here's a big comment from him at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, there you go, Dr. Barry Gordon.
He's actually in Amsterdam, by the way.
Yeah, very, very smart guy, very successful practice. And so listen, I take a lot of my direction from on the medical side from him. He's like I said, he's very astute, and he keeps me in touch. And listen, it's tough to pass any type of thing regarding the subject, but I think we've done overall a pretty good job on the medical side, and I think they're doing a good job with their patients and everything else.
So Senator, Dr. Gordon, if you read his comment, there are a couple things that he did mention in there, and we've been advocating for at least the past 5 years. And one in particular is the right of medical patients to remain employed and not have their medical status used against them. Other states are addressing these issues of workplace drug testing and updating their policies to, essentially allow medical marijuana patients, much in the same way someone who has a prescription for legal opioids, to, prove that they have a medical defense. And we're not seeing that in Florida. Every single year since we passed it, we've seen newspaper articles of public employees fired from their jobs and such. And so we're just wondering, could we count on you as a leader in the legislature to actually address this, possibly give these bills a hearing this upcoming session?
Well, I'm certainly willing to look at it, and it's about trying to figure out ways that we could build consensus. It's not just about one person support. We got to be able to go out there and find a couple of people that are willing to tackle it. I'm certainly willing to look at it and work with Dr. Gordon to figure out the best path to take. And certainly, here's the deal. Once Amendment 3 passes, there's going to be a lot of bills that are going to come up regarding this overall subject. So now is the time to revisit all these items and to try to do it the right way. That's the best thing I could say is this is going to be the opportunity to impact and influence real change over the next probably 6 to 8 months.
Gary, you've written quite a robust legislative package over the last couple of years. Would you care to share with the senator some of the other issues that folks have come to us about that they've been experiencing in the medical system?
Yeah, in regards to the medical system is concerned, if you go into the hospital, which is an institution which sometimes accepts Medicare, Medicaid funds, they will say you can't have your medicine here, even though it's working for you. I had a lady who had Parkinson's who was put into a Advent ALF, who had her medicine taken away, and within 2 weeks she went from being lucid to not even remembering who her son was, and passed away 2 weeks later. It just exacerbated the Parkinson's to the point where it took her over and she passed away. And that was because of the fact that Advent was not willing to listen to the fact that she had something that was working for her, and she could take it in a way that would not affect the other patients in the facility. But the fact that they decided that they were worried they were going to lose their Medicare funds, that they were going to go ahead and just eliminate it altogether. And also, if you're on the transplant list, there has been the idea that your survivability is actually less if you're on cannabis, but the fact is, because it is an anti-inflammatory, it actually increases survivability. And so therefore people should not be kicked off the transplant list, but it happens right now. We'd love to see some legislation to that effect, at least in Florida.
Yeah, that seems like common sense. Both of those issues are certainly ones that they're very valid points and should be addressed.
Well, Gary, there were a couple others I recall. The biggest one is our Second Amendment rights. There's this conflict around being able to protect your family and also be able to live free of these chronic debilitating illnesses as a medical marijuana patient. I know there's some pending court cases around it, but if we could fix this through the legislative process, I think a lot of folks will feel a lot more comfortable even becoming medical patients, because the idea that you have to give up a constitutional right in order to live a healthy life definitely doesn't sit well. But even the fact that you can have your medical status used against you in a custody hearing for the sake of, maybe you have rheumatoid arthritis, but you could be considered a bad parent because you have a medical marijuana card. So.
You're looking at one of our questions here. Yeah, that's one of the issues that we are concerned about, and in part because of the fact that one of the reasons that we're in favor of Amendment 3, and I don't like all of it, I got to tell you, it's going to need to be legislated to fix a lot of things about it. But one of the things has to do with public use. I mean, what good is a product that you use as medicine or otherwise that you can't actually use practically anywhere? The way the current law states, you must be in a private location that you either own or you get permission from the owner to be able to utilize it. And I see the Adult Amendment 3 coming up as a way to see a lot more people actually going to be arrested, especially if they are told that it's illegal to use anywhere other than in your own home, and that's only if you own the home.
Listen, there's going to be plenty of opportunities, private consumption type rooms, different places. There's going to be opportunities. There's always ways, and you think you're closing a door and two other are open. So I think that there's going to be. I'm not concerned with the ability of the access or the ability to use the products responsibly in a way that other people won't be impacted. So it's I have confidence in the system that we could do it right and make sure that we don't completely trample on people's ability to use the product at the end of the day.
Well, and the other thing I'm concerned about is I'm certain something that Dr. Berry will bring up is that we're worried that an adult use program might just cannibalize the medical program. And right now, people who need the medicine don't have to get taxed for it, which helps when you can't work if you're sick, kind of situation. But I'd like to see some kind of legislation that would maintain the medical program, and not like in states like Washington and others that totally lost their entire medical program.
Well, yeah, the goal is to keep the medical system, and you don't have to pay taxes if it's a medical product. And so I think that that will continue to survive. And depending on what happens at the federal level, at some point, it may make a lot more sense to be on the medical side. So I think they could both coexist and both survive and both be successful.
Senator, one conundrum that I kind of see with our Florida law is that the competitiveness of the industry in licensing more businesses is tied directly to patient counts. As you said before, some people may not choose to renew their cards. Some may because they don't want to pay the taxes. But, do you think that we need to readdress how we give out new licenses under an adult use system, for the simple fact that obviously patient counts may drop, and then therefore that could actually reduce competition in the industry, which would, essentially reduce consumer quality and access. Because in America, we believe that there shouldn't be monopolies. We believe that competition is healthy for business.
I don't know how many licenses have been given out to this point. I was one of five members of the Florida House to vote against the original implementing bill of the medical marijuana, and people say, why did you vote against it? Because I didn't like the vertical integration system, and I thought that the state was getting hosed in terms of the license deal, because people were getting these licenses and flipping them for $50 million because you had some special connection. I thought, said, man, that stinks to high heaven. And so the people that took the licenses and actually used it to operate, to start a company and that are out there successful, good for those people. The people who flipped it, I think the state should claw all those dollars. And so that I know that's a side point, but it's listen, that's a great point that I haven't even thought of. Is you're exactly right. The licenses would certainly probably be capped at whatever amount that we're at now, and so maybe that it's something we could look at. But again, that would be the time to have all those discussions are probably going to be in the next couple of months once this bill passes.
Senator, I just wanted to say I've been sitting here this whole time, and I want to start off by saying that I'm actually quite impressed by you. You seem to have a pretty common sense way of approaching this, and especially I got into an argument with my dad this morning about Democrat versus Republican, and I think
he's a Cuban conservative, just so you know.
Regardless of whether you're red or blue, the way you're looking at this issue, everything you said, from as much as Gary may hate me saying this, but how you disliked the original bill that came out, or
evolution is good.
You're not picking on marijuana smokers. Your problem is that you want you don't want secondhand smoke, regardless of whether that comes from, and I applaud you for that. I quit smoking years ago, and it was one of the worst things I've ever done in my life. If I didn't have more people outside smoking, I probably would have never picked that up. So I applaud you for everything that you're doing. I think, unfortunately, you are going to get, and you know what? I applaud you for taking such a stance on Amendment 3 and saying yes on 3, even though DeSantis and all the powers that be in Florida are like, no, Amendment 3, I hate the smell of marijuana. But I can see you getting a lot of flack, and I think the media is even pushing you under the bus a little bit for this smoking ban. And I think it's great that you came on here to talk to us about it, because I think I have a completely different opinion about it now that I've talked to you about it.
You mean to say that the media actually conflates issues?
Yeah, they do. And it seems like they were like, oh my God, this Republican wants to ban smoking in public. It's a big problem though when you're, oh geez, I didn't mean to put the camera on me like that. But it's a big problem though, especially I foresee it in Florida, where tourists come here and they want to be a part of, they maybe they're medical patients back home. Maybe they just want to come and hang out and smoke weed in Florida and have an awesome spring break. Whatever that is, I don't think that they should have any issues because of it. I think it would be very important, whether it's in this smoking ban bill or if it's in another bill, that we put some sort of licensing procedure to make sure that we help these tourists coming into the state so that they won't get arrested and leave on probation.
A reciprocity bill for people with medical cards from other states.
Some sort of reciprocity for our medical system, or some sort of licensing for smoking lounges or something like that, because it seems like you're going to be thrown under the bus for this smoking ban specifically for this reason, at least in our little marijuana community.
And Florida loves our tourists.
Well, what you got to remember is, think about this. The number one argument that the opponents of Amendment 3 have
Yes,
is
very
the
smart.
smell.
Yes.
So what we did is we went and pulled the rug out and said, listen, we have the authority to do whatever we want once it passes. We have the power of the Constitution to put the same regulations out that tobacco has, that alcohol has. We could do this right? People don't want to admit it, that we have the authority to go out and do these things, but we do. And we did it before when we passed that medical marijuana bill, the implementing bill, and we could do it again when this amendment passes. But listen, it's easy to put out misinformation out there. And listen, I'm not trying to pigeonhole any of my colleagues or the governor, but again, I go back to access. I don't know of a single person that wants to be able to use this product that can't find the product, either through the medical or through the legacy markets. It's that's what it comes down to. Me, we're way past the be able to still get arrested for minor possession of marijuana is just ludicrous. So,
Well,
Yeah, we still have law enforcement chances to go ahead and arrest anybody they want to arrest. They've always had the discrepancy to either give you a civil citation or arrest you or put you in jail. So we're hoping that we can get some kind of clarity on that.
Well, Gary, we have zero tolerance counties. If you're driving through Madison County, there's no civil citations for you, if you have weed in your car. So that's definitely a concern. And in Amendment 3, as I said, possession limits will change to up to 3 ounces, for flour, up to 5 grams for concentrates. For those of you listening and watching at home, understand that any amount of concentrate, whether it's an edible, a vape pen, dabs, can net you a felony in Florida automatically. So that there's definitely concerns. If you have more than 20 grams of flour, those are also felony charges. So for those of you who are cannabis consumers out there, pay attention to what Amendment 3 does at its core in changing these laws that Florida has for the better, so people aren't getting arrested, so they aren't being taken out of the workforce, so we're not losing productivity and good hardworking people of Florida who just want some type of relief at the end of the day.
And also, don't forget, guys, there's a difference between possession and use. If you are allowed to possess 3 ounces, doesn't mean that you can smoke it anywhere you like. Those are 2 separate issues. And so, even though you may be able to possess 3 ounces, you can't be out there smoking your 3 ounces in the street. That's what it comes down to, or in any mode of transportation, as they say in the rules and regulations. And we're looking forward to the legislation using common sense, like you said, to develop the rules and regulations that they get permission from in regards to this new amendment to do it right. One of the things that Chris had mentioned is the fact that right now, if you have a medical card and the Department of Children and Families knocks on your door, they can go ahead and petition to have your kids taken away, even if your kids don't have access to your medicine and that you are using it to be a better parent because you're healthier. And so we're looking forward to utilizing something that is available right now in Pennsylvania, which basically says that just the access of parents to the cannabis is not enough. You actually have to show the kids are getting access to the product, and they are in danger because normally the parents are responsible.
Well, Gary, also in regards to access right now, and this ties into also vertical integration. We have a thriving hemp industry in the state of Florida that Governor DeSantis, essentially took issue with this past legislative session in feeling that perhaps the legislature was overreaching in regulations of that industry. Carlos, you're a hemp business owner. Why don't you share with the senator kind of like your experiences over the last couple sessions and where do you think your role is in the future of adult use, as a hemp business?
As far as going up to Tallahassee the past 2 years and trying to talk to lawmakers and being called a drug dealer and trying to give pot to kids and It's been a shit show. I'm sure you're very, very much aware.
Yeah, we're not within the FCC rules here, so that he can say shit about shit.
I'm sure you're very much aware of these hemp bills, and they've honestly, and as much as I've had issues with many of the policies our governor has put forward. I'm very, very grateful to the governor for vetoing that, and making sure that this industry can stay in business.
And 39 senators actually did vote for that bill that he vetoed.
As much as that there was issues with that bill, as much as there's issues, let me say this, as much as there's issues with the hemp industry, the way that bill was presented, it wasn't presented to keep the business alive. It was presented in such a way that would destroy this industry. These are all businesses that are licensed by the state, regulated by the state, inspected by the state,
regularly,
quite regularly. I own 2 hemp stores, and this store here has been visited twice already this year by the Department of Agriculture, and some of my products have been taken off the shelf, and the state has done a good job in regulating this business. All these businesses are 21 and up. We're not selling to kids. The issue with this business is that it's hard to regulate people that don't play ball with the state. And those are the people that weren't going to be affected by these hemp bills. These were the people that were going to be affected were the 10,000 permitted businesses that legally sell hemp and are inspected by the Department of Agriculture to sell a good, safe, quality product. So great. The governor, vetoed all of that. The issue that I see though is that, a lot of companies in this space, are supporting the No on 3 stance, specifically because those hemp bills were sponsored by the adult use, the medical marijuana treatment centers. And the medical marijuana treatment centers were really the ones that were trying to get us out of business.
You'd think the MMTCs were not in favor of a free market.
Well, that's the vertical integration, Gary.
So and here's, realistically speaking, I am yes on 3, and if Amendment 3 passes, regardless of whatever hemp bill passes, if no hemp bill passes, adult use marijuana is going to crush the hemp business. There's going to be a lot of business that's going to go from us over to the adult use side of things, and I'm all for that. I think we can both coexist. I think a good way that these companies that could survive in this industry is if in Amendment 3 it says that other licensed entities could be licensed to sell adult use marijuana. I think if a hemp permit, people who are licensed, legally selling, playing ball with the state, people with hemp permits should be rewarded and maybe get some sort of retail license in order to sell adult use marijuana. Maybe we could buy it from the actual current MMTCs. Maybe the MMTCs can get cut in that business. But I think it would be a great thing to do to really help out this. I think it's the 3rd largest industry in the state of Florida, the hemp industry. Am I right in saying that, guys? No, well, I'm not.
10,000
Carlos, the only thing I'll say is to me that makes sense, for the existing hemp license holders or whatever to be able to have some type of license underneath. But that goes back to the vertical integration, the original vertical integration bill. And the question is, can we get enough of our colleagues to go along and support something like that? I 100% would support it. The question is, how can we get others? And that's where the one thing that the hemp business owners did really well is they brought a lot of people up to Tallahassee, a lot of business owners, and you got to build relationships up with members, and you got to be able to try to work those members and try to convince them that an idea like that, Yeah, there's no need if it's going to be catastrophic, and certainly for even on the medical side, somehow bring them in as well, some way to make it so we're not crushing anybody else, but allow everybody to thrive in this new system. So that'd be my goal and my intent. So
I would highly recommend that the legislature get a chance to talk to the legislature in Michigan. They have done a very good job of kind of balancing out the medical program and the hemp program and the adult use program, so that people have the ability to get into the industry regardless of their amount of wealth, and in some cases, in regards to the decisions they had made when they were younger, perhaps got arrested and had a felony, and they were able to get expunged and things of that sort. So I'm hoping that we can find that balance that allows more people access into this industry, because this is an opportunity for so many people to lift themselves up and be good tax-paying citizens.
That's right.
Well, Gary, I know that Senator Gruters and his colleagues have said time and time again, and since they don't want to be like California, and the one thing we can take from California's lessons is let's not overtax the adult use market to where you force people back into the legacy market. So I just wanted to bring that point up, Senator, because as you all discuss implementation, how we're going to tax and generate revenue on the adult use market, that is a major concern that we've seen in other states. And, in the free state of Florida, that's definitely not something that folks want to see, is higher taxes.
Yeah, great point. I agree with you 100% on that.
I mean, right now, Michigan is at 16% sales tax for adult use products. And in Ohio, well, what they did was they put 16% sales tax on it, but the adult use products are between 3 and 5 times more expensive than the medical products. So the mental geniuses over in Ohio are saying, well, we don't want to pay the 16% sales tax, so we'll go ahead and buy this, at 3 or 4 times. It doesn't make any sense. So let's, like you said, common sense. And it's good to have somebody who's got an accounting background to understand this law, because it comes down to dollars and cents for so many people, especially those people like our veterans who can't afford the medical card right now, and who definitely couldn't afford the prices if they had to buy it on an adult use product that's overtaxed for them, because they deserve a break as they're taking care of their PTSD, and our first responders as well. I know that after having several conversations with various sheriffs, including Chronister and NACO and those folks there, that they really don't want to have their officers using this at all. Although we do have first responders who can't unsee the things they've seen, and they do have PTSD, and they are still working. And I'm saying, can we at least get a study going to verify the fact that if they're using it when they're not on call and not on duty, that to treat their PTSD, that will make them better officers and less chance of having a PTSD trigger when they're out there trying to withhold the peace in our state.
Well, Gary, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually testified in the state of Maryland this year against or actually for ending urinalysis testing as a identification of impairment. And in the talks of that, the bill died this year, but it was very clear. Urinalysis testing is not an indicator of an impairment under any type of system where this is not totally illegal. If it was totally prohibited, then yeah, as a worker, you shouldn't have any form of THC in your system. But it is legal for medical purposes. We're looking at adult use, and therefore urinalysis testing doesn't show that you're impaired. You could have smoked 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago. You could have smoked on the weekend and then go back to work on Monday. That doesn't necessarily show impairment. And there are other ways in the workplace to detect impairment. You can hand someone an iPad and make them take a 90-second cognitive test to see if they're impaired, not just from cannabis, but alcohol, opioids, prescription drugs, all the things that folks have concerns about when it comes to their public employees and the safety of their families. So I want to point those facts out as the senator and his colleagues address that, because the Democrats in Maryland screwed the pooch on that. Let's see if the Republicans in Florida can get it right for the people.
Let's hope we can.
Now, of course, everything in the legislature, in order to be successful, passing bills, you have to have bicameral support. And I know that, especially in the House, it's very much leadership driven. And I do see a difference in the Renner speakership versus Danny Perez's speakership, in part because he has a lot of concern in regards to people with disabilities, kind of like the way that Andy Gardner drove the Senate in the years that he was working in there. Do you see the House working more with the Senate in regards to the issues that we've been talking about today?
Listen, I think that the leadership on both sides want to make sure that something that, again, they want the best possible bill to come up. The question is can we navigate the people, all the different outside groups that want to have a say on what happens, and can we put out the product that's going to be the best possible product for Florida? I have confidence in Ben Albritton and Danny Perez to do just that. And I think a lot of my colleagues, just from putting this bill out, I had a lot of people respond to me and had a lot of good conversations, and a lot of people want to do this right. But this next, after November, we're going to have a couple of months, and it's going to be full steam ahead, and we got to make sure that we get the best possible people working on it. So, but like I said, I'm confident both houses will do it right. And listen, the governor's going to have his say as well. So,
Gary,
that was
about people with disabilities. There has been bills to essentially waive the state fee for veterans, in regards to getting their medical cards. I think, people with disabilities on fixed incomes and Social Security, that's another issue as well. So I think I'm hopeful that, the Speaker of the House will address that, in a meaningful way in this upcoming session, because veterans and people who's on fixed incomes on disability, dishing out an extra $75 out of their pocket. For veterans, it doesn't make much sense. They've served their time, done their piece. And for folks on Social Security disability, that's another issue as well. So I think definitely continuing to, as the senator said, protect that medical access. There are definitely improvements to the system that can be addressed this session. And like you said, with the speaker having that focus on folks with disability, hopefully we can actually see that come to fruition and not die in committee or die in one house and not make it through the other, like we've seen in past sessions.
Yeah, I know this is not exactly in the same realm as everything we've been talking about today, but Senator, I do have a bill for you. People hear me say that, they start running. But the fact that my wife and I have a bill that will reduce the amount of what is called Chapter 14 special certificates that allows people to allow supervisors to pay their disabled employees less than minimum wage. And this comes from a law that was in the 1938 Fair Labor Standards Act, and it's called Chapter 14. And basically, we've been trying for years. We even had Gus Billeracus sponsor a bill for us in the House in D.C., and it never got anywhere. But I think we can do it in Florida because we have so many people with disabilities that are getting paid less than minimum wage, sometimes even a couple dollars an hour or less, that they can't possibly live on. And it's because of the fact that people are using these Chapter 14 special certificates. So I think we can phase them out. I think that Speaker D. Perez is interested in it. So we can discuss that later on.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. That's a great idea.
Joe, I got a question for you. Have you ever had any experience with cannabis before?
I have.
You have? Have you smoked before?
All my interactions with cannabis has been through edibles.
Through edibles?
Yeah.
So you've eaten an edible before?
Yes.
Did you take too much?
Yes.
Can you share what happened?
No, not but I will tell you that every time I didn't take at all. And
the vibes I get from you, the shirt, the Trump painting, that I feel like I could smoke a joint with you and like go fishing.
Yeah, you'd probably have a good time. It's I'm pretty relaxed all the time, but listen, when I do participate in it, it's usually with my wife, and it's usually when we're on vacation. So
yeah,
that makes perfect sense. Somebody got angry at me the other day because I put up this little post saying that Matt Gaetz is helping prep the former president for the debate, and I was wondering if he's going to do his makeup and hair too.
Yeah. I was surprised Matt Gaetz came out against the Amendment 3.
Did he really?
That was kind of a surprise, but
Wow.
I mean, he and I worked on the original bill 1040 back in 2014 to make this a reality. And I mean, face it, he's the son of a pharmacist. Obviously, he must know something about drugs, right?
Maybe. Well, Senator, I do want to thank you again for joining us. We're coming up to the top of the hour here, and you've been a great, guest and really just sitting down and listening. We get a lot of flack sometimes about, me being a Democrat, Carlos and Gary being kind of liberal in their policies. But we've had Republicans on the show. We've had former Senator Brandis on the show. We've had, Republicans from California on the show. We've had Representative Nancy Mace. And now we were able to add you to the list. And one thing we can see is that this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue about freedom. It's an issue about being able to live a healthy and quality lifestyle. It's about safe and affordable access for responsible cannabis users. And that's always been NORML's mission since its inception, is to stop arresting responsible users and make sure that they have safe, quality access to the product that they need. And so we thank you for coming on the show today, and we'd love to invite you back on in a future episode so that way we can discuss some of these issues that are pertinent to Floridians.
After the generals.
Yeah, that sounds great. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you allowing me to come on and speak to your audience, especially on Amendment 3. It's going to be a big push till the end, but I think it's about time we pass it and make Florida part of the overall national coalition of states that have legal adult use. But it's all about access. It's about safe access. It's about decriminalizing minor possession of marijuana, and it's about controlling the time, place, and manner that people could do it. We could do it the right way. I have full faith and confidence in the governor and my fellow members of the legislature. And listen, it's been great to be here, and I'm glad that you've invited me, and I really appreciate the time.
Well, Jeff Randus once told me that the Senate basically works in Florida like 40 Somalian warlords.
Yeah.
Which means basically you're not just taking clues from leadership and just going forward with it, but you're actually thinking on your own first, which I think is wonderful.
Exactly.
I applaud your courage in going up against the governor. I'm hoping you can change his mind. I don't know if that's
trying. I'm always working it.
At least get him to stop using the fingers of the pudding. At least try that, and then I'd be happy. But we appreciate you coming on and doing so much clarification on your stance. And again, we applaud your courage on that.
Thank you, Senator. You're a good sport, man. I appreciate you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Carlos, I think it's time for the news.
Oh, I'm not ready. Oh.
So, looking at the NORML news this week, for those of you who want to get the latest in the news and from NORML, go to norml.org, sign up for the email list, and you'll actually get the great news that NORML puts out each and every week, including medical studies, including the latest in politics around the country. And on that note, a recent poll showed that a majority of voters in swing states, namely Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, all support the regulated adult use and decriminalization of cannabis. How this is going to play into federal policy and these federal elections this upcoming November still remains to be seen. But we do see a shift in federal stances and opinions on cannabis. I mean, since the Nixon administration, this has been a Schedule I substance. We've seen, incremental progress over the years from the Obama administration choosing not to utilize federal funds to go into, medical states and shut down dispensaries, to actually seeing that codified in spending bills each and every year in Congress now on a regular basis, and seeing that adult use in medical states aren't cracked down on by federal agencies, and essentially letting the states be the laboratories of democracy that they are. That being said, we now have half the country, half the states essentially as some form of regulated adult use. And so it's time for Congress to actually take action. And we've seen the rhetoric coming from the current Biden administration in that they're looking to reschedule cannabis. They've instructed agencies, and there were tens of thousands of comments from folks all across the country in the DEA comment period around rescheduling that recently closed at the end of July. So
Yeah,
it's still
over 60,000 comments, I believe, correct?
so it's still exactly, Gary, and it still remains to be seen. It was like 9 out of 10 comments to the DEA favored legalization and the rescheduling the cannabis. Descheduling is NORML's official stance. We don't feel as though this needs to be on the Controlled Substances Act. There's definitely Schedule 3 presents some concerns because folks under the Schedule 3 status, the way the FDA and the Department of Health regulate and do drug trials, flower could be something that may not be viable under Schedule 3. So there are concerns, and we don't feel as though Schedule 3 is even the appropriate schedule. But for those folks who want to get more information out there, definitely go to normal.org and you can check that out and read those studies and see what's coming out of that. Vice President Kamala Harris has said we need to legalize marijuana, that people shouldn't go to jail for it. And she actually met with NORML members who received presidential pardons from Joe Biden. So we've seen this also take place in states. For example, Maryland Governor Wes Moore issued over 175,000 cannabis pardons in the state of Maryland. So Governor DeSantis, if this is your chance to step up and shine, and don't be outshined by some big blue state Democratic governor. Do the same in Florida. Issue out the cannabis pardons for folks in Florida, and especially once we pass Amendment 3, it doesn't make sense to keep recriminalizing and redebating these issues when clearly the American public is much on the same par as Florida. You have over 7 out of 10 Americans saying that cannabis shouldn't be illegal, and you see a majority of both parties in independent minded voters, libertarian minded voters, Green Party, socialist voters across the board. So definitely the Florida legislature does have some catching up to do with its own constituencies in regards to getting on board and addressing the shortcomings of the medical system in implementing an adult use system. And again, we're thankful for Senator Gruters to come on. He's been a leader in the Republican Party. He's been a leader in the Florida legislature in both houses in the past. And so as we see more and more leaders evolving on their stance and their issues, this is your time as advocates to engage in the political process. Carlos and Gary can tell you the time to engage your legislators is not during legislative session per se, but it's before. It's now. It's making the phone calls. It's filling out an action alert when you get one from NORML and generating those letters. It's sending those emails to Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Rick Scott and telling them like their stances on prohibition are outdated and that you as their constituent, regardless if you're Democrat, Republican, especially if you're Republican, to hold your leaders accountable and making sure that we're putting the right people in office. To that point, NORML has put out a primary election voter guide of Democrats and Republicans that essentially passed the muster for this legislative cycle. The primaries, the last day to vote is actually August 20th. Today, Sunday, is the last day to early vote in many counties. But Carlos, if you could flash the voter guide up on the screen, or folks can go to our Facebook page and they'll also be able to see access to that. But we have a list of both federal candidates and state candidates. As you can see, they're the state candidates that we're backing. And then, of course, there's the other one, which has the federal candidates on there. You can see, again, both Democrats and Republicans. Many of them have even been on the rotation. So go back to our social media channels. You can check us out on Facebook, or you can go to youtube.com/@SuncoastNormal. Watch those past guides with members of Congress of both Republican and Democratic parties. You can see some of these folks that are on there that have been guests on the show and hear their stances and positions when it comes to protecting the rights of cannabis users and making sure they have safe and affordable access to the medicine that they utilize. More than that, as I said before, we have a majority of states essentially after this session, this election will most likely be legal states. North Dakota recently achieved enough signatures to be on the ballot. South Dakota is voting for the third time on adult use this year. And then, of course, you have the big one here in Florida, which, essentially will break that southern wall when it comes to adult use. And we'll see more dominoes falling. We'll see more states getting in line. I know that there are other states like Pennsylvania that have been discussing, adult use sales. Delaware recently has sped up their timeline on adult use sales. So there is a lot to be said as to both direct democracy, like Amendment 3 being on the ballot, and pressuring in your legislators, which we're seeing in other states through the legislative process, address adult use and address the shortcomings of medical and adult use systems in the modern era around things like drug testing, parental rights, and worker protections. And so again, I want to thank Senator Gruters for coming on the show because these are big issues, and we need folks in the leadership to take a lead on addressing them. In the grand scheme of things, people should not be fired from their job for using the state-sanctioned legal medicine. People shouldn't have their kids taken away because they're trying to live a healthy lifestyle away from chronic debilitating illnesses. And people shouldn't be denied medical treatments and discriminated against in their medical treatments for being medical marijuana patients. So that's the normal news this week. We hope that those of you who are listening and maybe you feel motivated will go ahead and take the next step and become members of Suncoast Normal. Join our chapter. We could use your time, your treasure, your talent in being members. We could use utilizing the state legislature to engage folks. We're a nonpartisan organization. Regardless of your political affiliations, we will welcome you on board. The more, the merrier. And the biggest thing is making sure that we hold our elected leaders accountable to doing the right thing by the people.
Absolutely. And I want to make mention to the fact, any candidates who are listening right now, and I know there's a whole bunch of you that are still, like getting over your Saturday night campaign things and probably halfway awake right now. Let me just remind you guys that if you have not turned in your surveys that we sent to you, we are rebooting the endorsement list after the primaries to go after the folks who are going to be in the general. And if you're interested in getting our endorsement, if you believe the way that we believe, fill out the damn survey, okay? and
Go
get
to
it.
suncoast.org. It's on our homepage. If you're a candidate in the state of Florida, you're running in the general election, fill out that survey if you want our endorsement. You want our members to know that you're the right person for the job to represent the people.
And if you want visibility for your platform, there is a box you can check in that survey which says, I want to be a guest on the rotation. And we have a place for you in our heart and on our screen. And we are looking forward to seeing you because we are restreaming all the time, every single Sunday. We're not going to discuss other kind of streams, are we, today? Okay, good.
That is an inside joke, Gary. We will not share that with the public anytime soon.
No,
but
not even close. Not even close.
That's Christopher had a good question in the comments, though. Trump is a resident of the state of Florida, right? Trump is
Florida vote.
Yeah, he's voting for all the same things we're voting for. I have a feeling I know how he's going to vote on abortion, but
let the states do it.
Is he is he's going to vote for Amendment 3? Because can anybody didn't he make a comment that Florida is going to vote soon?
He said he's looking into it.
He's looking into it.
He teased that he will have an official position coming out soon. Much in the same way.
2 weeks, most likely 2 weeks.
Yeah, much in the same way we see Senator Gruters buck Senator DeSantis's stance on Amendment 3. I would not be shocked if former President Trump bucked Governor DeSantis's position as well. Right. Especially considering the falling polling numbers. The distinct one clear distinction between the two candidates is you have Vice President Harris saying we need to legalize marijuana, And then you have President Trump, who in previous rhetoric said people who sell drugs should get the death penalty. So if he were to have evolved on that stance in support of adult use in Florida, that may go a long way to helping him in a swing state like Florida. Because in the grand scheme of things, Ron DeSantis is not on the ballot this November. Donald Trump is, and if he's got any sense, he'd pay attention to how that is going to affect him in his home state.
Is that still like a thing, like the rivalry between DeSantis and Trump?
I mean,
I think he's a little pissed. Yeah, just a little
yeah,
pissed.
like Trump is probably like holding a grudge or something.
well,
I think DeSantis is holding a grudge right now.
Oh,
size with other candidates. I don't know if he's measured the size of any other body parts that he's flexing on other guys. But I'll say this much: him and DeSantis do tend to get in the manhood measuring contest at times. So we'll see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, absolutely. And
well, if he's gonna vote yes on Amendment 3, we got to get him on the show.
I don't think he's
the open invitation to President Trump. We would love to hear your stance on Amendment 3, and you can jump here on the rotation. So for those of you Republicans out there who have that connection, make sure you send them the invite, direct them towards Gary.
Jason Beck, if you're listening on the West Coast, I know you do breakfast over at Mar-a-Lago every time you come into Florida. You come in there with your chinchilla coat and you sit down and you have breakfast. And hopefully every once in a while, the big orange guy comes by. So we're asking you to help us get Trump on this show. I'm also trying to get the governor of Maryland on. Chris, you keep on working on that. And let me know at the DNC if you see some Minnesota sensibility moving into the platform. Because I'd like to see that, actually. I'm just so surprised that Minnesota's next to South Dakota.
Well, I'm going to be wrapping up here and getting back on the road to Chicago. But throughout the week, I will be lining up future guests among the luminaries of the Democratic Party to come on and discuss how we need to end the federal prohibition on cannabis and some of those state luminaries as to what they're doing right in their states and how we can get it right in Florida. So that we'll definitely have some special guests coming up for you in the coming weeks. That being said, if you're watching today on YouTube or Instagram, Facebook, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Go ahead, follow us. Again, hit that like button. We want to have more folks being able to spread the reach. We present to you the latest in cannabis news, policy, and entertainment each and every week here. We've had some amazing guests on the rotation. Everyone from members of Congress, folks running for the highest offices in the state of Florida, to even Tommy Chong. So I'm just just amazed at how can I put it? How far we've come from going from Carlos's garage to being able to have such amazing folks on the show. And that is in no small part to, of course, Gary as our political director and Carlos as our resident engineer on the show. I'm just the guy who's a talking head on the screen. As my friends in Spanish will say, who hablando's mucho mierda. But other than that, we'll catch y'all next week, and peace and love.
And don't forget to check out the QR code above Chris's head there. Yeah, that Carlos is posting to. So we can become a member just in relatively 2 seconds and help us with the fight moving forward, regardless of your political affiliation. I don't even know what whiteboard move is. Well,
it's a function on our
okay.